The night before I turned 50, my late father appeared to me in a dream and spoke words that would save my life. Don't wear the dress from your husband. Welcome to Tea and Payback. Where the tea is hot, the secrets are messy, and karma always finds her way home. Before I go on, just a quick reminder. I share new life stories every day. If you enjoy them, subscribing and liking the video would mean a lot to me. Now sit down, pour yourself a cup of tea, let's continue. My name is Diane Holloway. I'm 50 years old now, though when this story begins, I was just hours away from that milestone birthday. For 2 decades, I'd been married to a man I thought I knew. I'd raised our daughter, worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and lived what most people would call an ordinary, comfortable life. But that dream, that warning from my father who'd been dead for 3 years, shattered the illusion of safety I'd wrapped around myself like a blanket. I woke that morning drenched in sweat, my heart hammering so violently I thought it might tear through my ribs. My nightgown clung to my back, cold and damp. I reached for the lamp with shaking hands, flooding our bedroom with soft yellow light. Beside me, my husband Thomas, Tom to everyone who knew him, slept undisturbed. He lay on his side, facing away from me, his breathing steady and even. He didn't stir when I gasped awake. He didn't sense my terror. I slipped out of bed carefully, my legs unsteady beneath me as I made my way to the kitchen. The house felt cavernous in the pre-dawn silence. I poured water with trembling hands, took several sips, but the tightness in my throat wouldn't ease. Sitting at our kitchen table, I dropped my head into my hands and closed my eyes, only to snap them open immediately. The vision from the dream returned with crystal clarity. My father stood in the doorway of our bedroom, exactly as I remembered him. He wore that gray cardigan I'd knitted for his 60th birthday, the one with the wooden buttons. His face held an expression I'd seen only a handful of times in my life, when he knew danger was near and couldn't speak it aloud. His eyes locked onto mine with fierce urgency. "Diane," he said, his voice soft but absolutely clear, as though he were truly standing before me. "Don't wear the dress from your husband. You hear me? Don't wear that dress." He repeated it 3 times, never breaking eye contact, then slowly faded into darkness as if he'd never existed. That's when I'd woken screaming, though the sound caught in my throat and never made it out. I rubbed my temples, trying to dispel the haunting image. It was just a dream, I told myself. Just pre-birthday anxiety manifesting in strange ways. Tomorrow was my 50th. My daughter Sophie and her family would be here. Friends were gathering. We had a table reserved at Rosewood Manor, the nicest restaurant in town. Of course I was overwrought. That's why I was seeing things, dreaming nonsense. But why that dress? I shuddered, gripping my water glass tighter. 2 weeks ago, Tom had presented me with an elegant box tied with cream-colored ribbon. Inside lay a stunning evening gown, deep burgundy, my favorite color. The fabric had an almost liquid quality, shimmering subtly in the light. The cut was sophisticated, flattering without being revealing. "For your celebration," Tom had said, smiling in that proud way he had. "I commissioned it from that seamstress Sophie recommended. Mrs. Claudia Pierce, I think her name was. She took all your measurements. I want you to be the most stunning woman at your party." I'd been genuinely moved. Tom wasn't romantic by nature. In 20 years of marriage, his gifts had always been practical, thoughtful but without flair. A new vacuum when ours broke. A set of quality pans when I mentioned cooking more. Useful things. This felt different. This felt like genuine effort. Except for his insistence. "You absolutely must wear this dress," he'd repeated several times over the past 2 weeks. "I want everyone to see what an incredible wife I have. No other dress will do. You understand? This is a special occasion." I'd laughed it off, assuring him I'd wear it. How could I not, with such a thoughtful gift? But something in his voice, the way his eyes tracked me when he mentioned the dress, had created a small knot of discomfort in my chest. I dismissed it then as Tom simply wanting everything perfect. He'd always been detail-oriented, almost obsessive about certain things. I stood and walked to the window. Dawn was still an hour away, the sky just beginning to lighten at the edges. The clock on the microwave read 5 a.m. I knew I wouldn't sleep again. My father's face wouldn't leave my mind. I remembered him in life, protective and perceptive, always sensing when something was wrong with me even when I tried to hide it. Even after I'd married and moved out, he still treated me like his little girl who needed looking after. Tom's a solid man, my father had said after our wedding. Reliable, steady. But Diane, always listen to your instincts. If something feels wrong, if there's unease in your gut, don't ignore it. A woman's intuition is rarely mistaken. Was this intuition? Or just exhaustion and nerves? The last few months had been draining. Work deadlines piling up, endless party preparations. Sophie calling nearly every day to discuss details and make sure everything would be flawless. Plus Tom had been different lately. More withdrawn. More irritable. Taking calls in other rooms. Insisting we needed that life insurance policy for family security. I returned to the bedroom. Tom hadn't moved. I studied his face in the dim light, familiar features softened by sleep. Gray threaded through his hair now. Lines creased the corners of his eyes. 20 years together. 2 decades of shared life, struggles overcome, joys celebrated. How could I suspect him of anything sinister because of a dream? I slid back under the covers, forced my breathing to slow and steady. I counted breaths, tried to relax, but sleep remained elusive. My father's voice echoed endlessly. Don't wear the dress from your husband. When the alarm finally sounded, I'd been staring at the ceiling for over an hour. Tom stretched, yawned, turned toward me with sleepy eyes. Morning, birthday girl, he mumbled, kissing my cheek. Sleep well. Fine, I lied, forcing a smile. A little anxious, of course. Everything will be perfect. Sophie's got every detail covered. He sat up, rubbing his face. And you in that dress. You'll be absolutely radiant. That dress again. The knot in my stomach tightened. Tom, maybe I should just wear that navy one after all. You know, the one we bought together last year? It's really elegant too. He froze, turned to look at me fully. Something flashed in his eyes, quick and sharp before his expression smoothed. Diane, we discussed this, he said, voice firm. I specifically commissioned that dress for your 50th. I spent considerable money, by the way. Mrs. Pierce worked hard getting it perfect. Are you trying to insult me? No, of course not, I said quickly, guilt washing over me. I just thought, forget it. Wear your dress. His tone softened but held an edge. You'll see. Everyone will be amazed. He got up and headed to the bathroom, leaving me sitting there clutching my knees. What was wrong with me? He was right. He'd spent money, made an effort to do something special, and I was being difficult over a nightmare. I forced myself up and went to make breakfast. The familiar routine calmed me slightly. Kettle on, eggs for omelets, bread sliced. Tom emerged from the shower already dressed, hair combed, smelling of cologne. I need to stop by the office today, he said, pouring coffee. Just for an hour or two. Some documents to sign. I'll be back by early afternoon. What time do we need to leave? Reservations at 6. We should head out by 5:30. He sat down with his coffee. What are you doing today? Just staying home. I'll call Sophie. Mrs. Pierce is bringing the dress over for final adjustments. Perfect. Tom picked up his phone, scrolling through messages. So you'll try it on, make sure everything fits right, and tomorrow night everything will be flawless. We ate mostly in silence. Tom absorbed in his phone, me pushing food around my plate. I watched him, searching for signs that my anxiety was justified, but saw only the Tom I'd always known. A little preoccupied with work, somewhat tired, but generally calm. After breakfast, he left. I walked him to the door, received a routine kiss, and stood in the empty house alone. The silence pressed against my ears. I wandered through rooms, straightening things that didn't need straightening, wiping away dust that wasn't there. One thought circled endlessly. The dress, my father's warning. When my phone rang, I jumped. Mrs. Pierce's name appeared on the screen. Mrs. Holloway, good morning. I'm heading your way shortly. The gown is ready. Is now convenient? Yes, absolutely. Come over. Wonderful. I'll be there in about 30 minutes. I hung up and sat on the sofa. The dress was coming. The very dress my father warned me about. And what would I do? Tell the seamstress I'd changed my mind? Reject my husband's expensive gift? On what grounds? I stood and paced, hugging myself. I needed to calm down, think clearly. I dialed Sophie's number. Mom, hey. Her voice was bright, cheerful. How are you feeling? Nervous. I tried to match her energy. A little. Everything's set with Rosewood Manor. Mom, I've told you 100 times. Everything's perfect. Tables reserved, cake is ordered, musicians confirmed. You just have to show up and look beautiful. She paused. Did you try on the dress? Not yet. Mrs. Pierce is bringing it over today. Oh, I can't wait to see it. Dad was going on about how gorgeous it is. Sophie laughed. By the way, little Jordan is so excited. He told everyone at daycare his grandma's having a huge party. I smiled, picturing my 5-year-old grandson's enthusiasm. We talked about small details for a while longer before Sophie said she had to run. When the doorbell rang exactly 30 minutes later, I opened it to find Mrs. Claudia Pierce on my porch, a large garment bag draped over her arm. Hello, Mrs. Holloway. I've brought your beautiful gown. I adjusted the hem as you requested and refined the fit at the waist. I think it's absolutely perfect now. Thank you so much for all your work. I led her to my bedroom. She carefully removed the dress from the bag, and I admired it again. Truly stunning. The burgundy fabric caught the light with subtle iridescence. The cut emphasized my waist while concealing the slight softness around my middle. The sleeves hit just below the elbow, elegant and age-appropriate. Please try it on, Mrs. Pierce requested. I want to make sure everything is just right. I stepped behind the folding screen, changed, and slipped into the dress. The zipper glided up smoothly. The fabric moved with me without restriction. I stepped out and faced the mirror. Oh my, Mrs. Pierce clasped her hands. It's absolutely stunning on you. Look at that silhouette. You're going to be the star of your party, truly. I looked at my reflection. An elegant woman in a luxurious gown looked back. Yes, it was beautiful. Yes, I looked wonderful. But why did dread still coil in my chest? I ran my hand over the fabric, across the hem, along the waist. Everything felt normal. What could possibly be wrong? The lining is pure silk, Mrs. Pierce explained, pointing out details. Your husband insisted on the finest materials, and he requested these hidden pockets in the side seams, in case you want to carry your phone or a tissue. I nodded, half listening. I was searching for something, anything that would justify this awful feeling, but found nothing. I think everything is excellent, Mrs. Pierce concluded. If you have no concerns, I should get going. Another client waiting. Yes, thank you again. Your work is beautiful. I changed back into my regular clothes and walked her to the door. Once alone, I hung the dress on a padded hanger in my closet and stood staring at it for a long time. Beautiful, expensive, crafted with obvious care and skill. Or not. Don't wear the dress from your husband. My father's voice rang so clearly in my mind I almost turned around, expecting to see him standing there. And I realized I couldn't just dismiss the dream. Something about it felt too urgent, too real, too specific to ignore. I closed the closet door, moved away, and sat on the edge of my bed. I had to decide what to do. Tomorrow was the party, and this dress that filled me with inexplicable dread. Tom returned around 2 p.m. I heard the front door, his footsteps in the hall. Did the dress arrive? He called. Yes, everything's fine, I replied, keeping my voice even. He walked into the living room where I sat with a book I hadn't actually been reading. Did you try it on? Yes. Mrs. Pierce said it fits perfectly. Excellent. He nodded, clearly pleased. Listen, I need to see Andrew this evening. He's got some documents for that property deal. Probably 3 hours or so. You don't mind? No, go ahead. He made himself a sandwich, watched some television, then left again around 4. I walked him to the door, and when it closed behind him, I felt strange relief, as if I could finally breathe properly. I went to the bedroom and opened the closet. The dress hung there, serene and innocent. I reached out, touched the fabric again. What could be hidden inside? I took it off the hanger and laid it across the bed. Sat beside it, examining every seam, every stitch. The workmanship was impeccable. Mrs. Pierce was clearly a master at her craft. Straight seams, neat finishing, not a single loose thread. I turned the dress over, inspecting the lining. The silk felt smooth under my fingers. I ran my palm across the interior, and suddenly, near the waist, the fabric felt slightly thicker than elsewhere. Or was I imagining things? I stood, turned on my desk lamp, held the dress closer to the bright light. Squinted. No, I wasn't imagining it. In the lining near the side seam by the waist, there was a small irregularity, as if something thin was sewn between the layers. My heart began to pound. I put the dress down and walked around the room, clenching and unclenching my fists. Ridiculous thoughts. It was probably just reinforcement stitching, standard tailoring to prevent the fabric from stretching. But my father's voice wouldn't stop. Don't wear the dress from your husband. I returned to the bed, picked up the dress, felt the spot carefully. There was definitely something there. Something thin and flat sewn between the fabric layers. My hands began to shake. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the dress. What should I do? Cut the seam open? If there was nothing there, I'd ruin the seamstress's work and have to explain to Tom why I destroyed his expensive gift. But what if there was something? I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. Remembered my father's face from the dream, his serious expression, his voice that held no uncertainty. Even in life, when he warned me about something, he was always right. The decision came naturally. I stood, went to my dresser, and took a small pair of sewing scissors from the drawer. Returned to the bed, turned on the bright lamp, and spread the dress inside out. I found the spot where I'd felt the irregularity, near the side seam closer to the waist, where no one would notice a slight thickening. I took a deep breath, positioned the scissors, and carefully picked at a single thread. The thread gave way. A small opening appeared in the silk. I carefully widened it, trying not to damage the main fabric. My fingers trembled so badly I had to stop, put down the scissors, compose myself. I tried again. The opening grew larger. And suddenly, something white spilled out onto the dark bedspread. Fine powder, like flour or baking soda, dusted the fabric. I froze, unable to believe what I was seeing. More powder spilled out, just a small amount, maybe a teaspoon. White, fine-grained, completely odorless. What is this? Why? I recoiled from the bed, dropping the dress. My breathing became shallow. Pounding started in my temples. This couldn't be an accident. Someone had deliberately sewn this powder inside the lining. Tom had done this, or ordered Mrs. Pierce to do it. But why? What was this powder? I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed my friend's number. Rebecca was a chemist, working in a hospital laboratory. If anyone could help me understand, it was her. Rebecca, hey. My voice sounded foreign, frightened. Can you talk right now? Diane, what's wrong? You sound strange. I need your help immediately. The words tumbled out. I found white powder in my dress. It was sewn into the lining. I don't know what it is, but I'm terrified. Silence on the line. Then Rebecca asked softly, carefully, which dress? The one Tom commissioned for my birthday. Another pause, longer this time. When Rebecca spoke again, her voice had changed, professional and urgent. Diane, listen to me very carefully. Don't touch that powder again. Don't touch it at all. If you got it on your hands, go immediately and wash them with soap multiple times. Put the dress in a plastic bag and seal it. Collect a small sample of the powder in a separate bag, but wear gloves. Do you have gloves at home? Yes, rubber gloves for dishes. Those will work. Collect a sample and bring it to the lab. I'm here now. Come as soon as you can. Rebecca, you're scaring me. I don't want to scare you, but this could be anything. From harmless talc to, we just need to check. Get dressed quickly and come here. I hung up and rushed to the bathroom. Turned the water as hot as I could stand and scrubbed my hands. Soaped, rinsed, soaped again. My skin turned red, but I kept washing, as if I could scrub away not just the powder, but the terror that had seized me. Then I went to the kitchen, retrieved rubber gloves and plastic bags. Pulled on the gloves, took a small Ziploc bag, and carefully collected a pinch of white powder from the bedspread. Sealed it and put it in my jacket pocket. I folded the dress carefully, trying not to scatter more powder, and packed it into a large trash bag. Tied it shut, hid it in the closet. Took off the gloves, washed my hands again, got dressed, and rushed out. On the drive to the lab, I tried not to think. Turned on the radio to drown out my thoughts, but the music grated on my nerves and I shut it off. I drove in silence, watching the road, the traffic lights, the pedestrians, and everything felt unreal, like watching a movie about someone else's life. Rebecca met me at the entrance to the lab building. She wore a white coat, her hair pulled back, her face serious. Give it to me. She took the baggie with the powder. Wait here. I'll run a preliminary analysis. I stood in the corridor, leaning against the cold wall. Time stretched impossibly. 10 minutes passed. 20. 30. I was about to knock on the lab door when it opened and Rebecca stepped out. Her face was pale. Let's talk in my office, she said quietly. We went to a small office at the end of the hall. Rebecca closed the door, sat at her desk, gestured for me to sit across from her. Diane, this isn't talc or baking soda, she began. This is a highly dangerous substance. The word hung between us. I stared at her, unable to speak. I ran an express test. It indicates the presence of toxic compounds. To determine exactly what it is requires full analysis, but I can tell you with certainty. This is poison. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of my chair. It's a contact poison that activates with moisture and heat, Rebecca continued. Meaning when a person sweats. If you had worn that dress and spent several hours in it, especially moving around, dancing, getting excited, during a party, your skin would have produced sweat and the poison would have begun absorbing through your skin. What would have happened? I whispered. First, weakness and dizziness. Then nausea, rapid heartbeat. And then, depending on dose and exposure time, cardiac arrest could occur. It would look like natural death from heart failure, especially in a 50-year-old woman at a celebration where she's excited, possibly drinking wine, experiencing strong emotions. I covered my face with my hands. This couldn't be real. This was another nightmare. Diane, listen. Rebecca moved closer, taking my hands. I know this is devastating, but we need to act. You have to go to the police immediately. The police? I raised my head, tears streaming down my cheeks. Rebecca, that's Tom. My husband. We've been together 20 years. How could he? I don't know how or why, but someone wanted to kill you and make it look accidental. He commissioned the dress, correct? Yes. But maybe the seamstress, maybe it was her. Why would the seamstress want to kill you? Does she even know you? I fell silent. Of course not. Mrs. Pierce was just a seamstress Sophie had recommended. We had no history, no reason for conflict. Diane, you have to go to the police, Rebecca repeated firmly. I'll provide an official report on the substance composition. I have a detective friend, a good man. Call him. Meet with him. She dialed a number, spoke to someone, then handed me a slip of paper with a phone number written on it. His name is Detective Warren Foster. I explained everything. He's waiting for your call. I took the paper with trembling fingers, stood, and left the office. In the corridor, I stopped, leaned against the wall, tried to gather myself. Tom wanted to kill me. My husband. The father of my child. The man I'd spent most of my adult life with. How was this possible? I dialed the detective's number. After several rings, a man's voice answered. Detective Foster speaking. Hello. My voice shook. My name is Diane. Rebecca gave me your number. Yes, Mrs. Holloway. I understand how difficult this is, but I need to meet with you as soon as possible. Where are you now? Near the medical lab on Cedar Avenue. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Wait by the entrance. I went outside and sat on a bench. My legs wouldn't hold me. My head felt foggy. People walked past. Cars drove by. Everything seemed distant and alien. 20 minutes later, an unmarked dark sedan pulled up. A man in his 50s got out, wearing a dark jacket, with a tired but attentive face. Mrs. Holloway? He extended his hand. Detective Warren Foster. Let's go talk. We went to the building lobby and sat on a couch in the corner. The detective took out a notebook and pen. Tell me everything from the beginning, he said. Take your time, but try to remember all the details. I told him about the dream, about my father, about the dress Tom had given me, about how I'd cut open the lining and found the powder. My voice broke. Tears flowed. But I kept talking. Detective Foster listened silently, occasionally making notes. When I finished, he nodded slowly. Mrs. Holloway, I need to tell you something, he said seriously. Your husband, Thomas Holloway, has been under surveillance for some time. We've been conducting an investigation into major financial fraud. He has serious debts to certain individuals. Very serious debts. I wiped my tears. What debts? He works. We have stable income. He became involved in illegal property transactions, borrowed money from criminal organizations, and lost it. The amount is substantial, and he was threatened with violence. But 6 months ago, he took out a large life insurance policy on you. We noted it as suspicious then, but couldn't prove anything. The world crumbled around me. Insurance. He'd insured me. He would collect the money after my death. So he really wanted to kill me for money. It appears that way. And this dress was the method to make it look like accidental death. Heart attack at a party. Common for women your age, especially with stress and alcohol. No one would question it. I stared at the floor, unable to lift my head. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of what I thought was love, partnership, shared struggles. Had it all been a lie? At least for the last 6 months? What do I do? I asked quietly. Right now, we take the dress as evidence. The powder sample, too. Rebecca has agreed to provide an official report. The rest is police work, but we need your help. Your birthday is tomorrow, correct? Yes. Here's what I propose. Detective Foster leaned closer. You attend your party, but not in that dress. Wear any other one. We'll be ready to intervene at any moment. Thomas Holloway expects you to wear that dress and die. When he sees you in different clothing and very much alive, he'll likely panic, possibly give himself away. That's when we move in. You want me to be bait? Not exactly. We want everything to proceed normally, but under our control. You'll be safe. I give you my word. My people will be nearby. I was silent, weighing the offer. Part of me wanted to run, hide, never see Tom again. But another part, stronger and angrier, wanted justice. He'd tried to kill me, the mother of his child. He had to answer for it. All right, I said firmly. I'll do it. Detective Foster nodded with what looked like respect. You're a brave woman, Mrs. Holloway. Everything will be fine. We discussed details for a while longer. Then the detective left, taking the dress with him as evidence. I remained standing outside the lab, looking at the empty street. Evening was approaching. Soon Tom would return home, and I'd have to look him in the eye knowing he wanted me dead. I'd have to talk to him, smile, pretend everything was normal. I drove home, barely able to function from exhaustion and shock. Walked into the house, went straight to the couch, and lay down under a throw blanket. Closed my eyes but couldn't sleep. Only endless thoughts swirled, giving me no peace. I remembered the last several months. How Tom had become more withdrawn, irritable. How often he left the room when his phone rang. How he'd insisted on that life insurance. It's necessary for family security, he'd said. All those small things I hadn't paid attention to now formed a terrifying picture. He'd planned this carefully and methodically, and I'd almost become the victim. But my father had saved me. Even after death, he'd protected his daughter. "Thank you, Daddy," I whispered into the emptiness. "Thank you for not abandoning me." Tears came again, but this time they were tears not just of grief, but of gratitude and determination. Tomorrow I'd go to my party, and Tom would realize his plan had failed. The door opened. Tom was back. I quickly wiped my tears and stood up from the couch, trying to look calm. "Diane, I'm home," he called from the entryway. "I'm here," I replied, stepping into the hall. He looked at me closely. "You look pale. Everything okay?" "Yes, just tired. Busy day preparing." "Well, you'll rest tomorrow at the party." He walked toward the kitchen. "What's for dinner?" I followed him silently, and for the first time in 20 years of marriage, I looked at my husband as a stranger. The night passed in fitful sleep. I'd drift off, then wake suddenly, listening to Tom's breathing beside me. Every time I opened my eyes, my heart raced. Reality returned like a crushing weight. Tom slept peacefully, even snored slightly. That tranquility seemed monstrous. How could he sleep so soundly while planning to murder his wife? In the morning, he woke first, stretched, turned to me with a smile. "Well, birthday girl, ready for your big day?" He kissed my cheek. I forced myself not to pull away. "Good morning." We ate breakfast in near silence. Tom scrolled on his phone, occasionally commenting on the weather. I mechanically chewed toast, tasting nothing. Detective Foster had called last night while Tom was in the shower. Everything was ready. His people would be at the restaurant disguised as regular diners. I was to act naturally and wait. "Listen, I need to stop by the office this afternoon," Tom said, finishing his coffee. "I'll be back around 5. Pick you up, and we'll head to the party together. Make sure your dress is ready so we're not rushing." I nodded without looking up. "Okay." He left around 1. I was alone. I went to the bedroom, opened the closet, and took out the navy dress I'd mentioned the day before. Simple, elegant, comfortable. I hung it on the closet door and stared at it for a long time. The phone rang. "Sophie." "Mom, happy birthday." Her voice bubbled with joy. "How are you feeling?" "Thank you, sweetheart." I tried to sound. "Retry. T. Continue. D. Cheerful." "I'm good, just a little nervous." "We're already on the road. We'll be at your place in about an hour. Jordan is so excited he forgot his favorite toy truck, and we had to turn back." Sophie laughed. "Listen, did you try on the dress? Dad kept going on about how stunning it is. I can't wait to see you in it." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I tried it on, but you know what? I've decided to wear a different one. The navy one. You remember it." A slight pause. "A different one. But Mom, Dad commissioned that one specially." "Sophie, please don't argue." My voice came out sharper than intended. "I'm wearing what I'm comfortable in. It's my party after all." Okay. Sophie sounded surprised by my tone. "Whatever makes you happy. Kisses. See you soon." I put down the phone and sat on the bed. The hardest day of my life stretched ahead. I had to smile, accept congratulations, talk to guests, all while knowing the man standing beside me had tried to end my life. I stood, went to the mirror, looked at my reflection. 50 years old. Lines around my eyes. Gray roots I covered religiously. An ordinary woman who'd lived an ordinary life. Worked as an accountant. Raised a daughter. Kept a home. What had I done to deserve this betrayal? Tears threatened, but I forced them back. No, I wouldn't cry today. Today I would be strong. I showered, dried my hair, applied light makeup, dressed in casual clothes, and waited. Sophie and her family arrived first. Her husband Greg carried an enormous bouquet of lilies. Jordan ran ahead and threw himself into my arms. "Grandma, happy birthday. We got you the biggest cake ever." I hugged him, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo, and for a moment everything else faded. This was real. This was worth living for. "Thank you, sweetheart," I whispered, kissing the top of his head. Sophie embraced me, and I felt her studying me with concern. "Mom, are you really okay? You look, I don't know, different." "I'm fine. Just tired from all the preparations." I pulled back and smiled. Come in, sit down. I'll make tea. They settled in the living room. Jordan chattered endlessly about his daycare and new friends. Greg discussed the evening's logistics with Sophie. I sat with them, nodding, answering questions, but feeling like I was watching from a distance. Tom returned home at 5 p.m. He was in good spirits, hugged Sophie, tousled Jordan's hair, shook Greg's hand. Well, time to get ready, he announced, checking his watch. We need to be at Rosewood Manor by 6. He looked at me. Diane, go get dressed. We're running short on time. I stood and walked to the bedroom, closed the door, leaned against it, and shut my eyes for one long moment. Now he'd see I was wearing a different dress. How would he react? I opened the closet, took the navy dress off its hanger, and put it on. Zipped it up, smoothed the fabric. Looked at myself in the mirror. I looked good, elegant, dignified. I grabbed my small clutch, tucked in my phone, lipstick, and tissue. Took a deep breath. Stepped out of the bedroom. Everyone was ready in the living room. Sophie in a beautiful cream dress. Greg in a suit. Jordan in a white shirt and little vest. Tom stood by the window. He turned when he heard my footsteps. His face changed. The smile froze. His eyes widened. And for a split second, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Rage. Confusion. Fear. What is this? He asked, his voice too sharp, too loud. What is what? I stopped in the middle of the room, meeting his stare. Why aren't you wearing that dress? I asked you to. I commissioned it specially. I prefer this one. I shrugged, trying to keep my voice steady. You're not going to object, are you, Tom? Sophie exchanged a glance with Greg. Awkward silence filled the room. But we agreed, Tom said, taking a step toward me. His movements conveyed barely restrained aggression. Diane, this is your 50th. I spent serious money. Had it made just for you. I'm more comfortable in this one, I interrupted firmly. And anyway, Tom, it's my birthday. I'll wear whatever I want. He stared at me. I could see thoughts racing behind his eyes. He didn't understand what was happening. Why wasn't I in that dress? His entire plan was collapsing before him. Mom's right, Dad, Sophie interjected, sensing the tension. What does it matter which dress? She looks beautiful. Tom clenched his fists, then relaxed them, forced a smile that looked painful. Of course. Of course. I'm sorry, Diane. I just wanted everything perfect. Everything is perfect, I replied, and there was steel in my voice that hadn't been there before. We drove to the restaurant in 2 cars. Sophie's family in one, Tom and I in the other. He was silent the entire drive, gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went white. I sat beside him, looking out the window, feeling the tension building like a storm about to break. Do you know something? He suddenly asked quietly. I turned to him. Know what? Don't play games. I can tell something's wrong. Since yesterday morning, you've been different. What happened? I looked into his eyes and felt everything inside me seize with pain. This man I'd loved, with whom I'd spent most of my life, now looking at me with the cold calculation of a predator whose prey had escaped. Nothing happened, Tom, I replied calmly. I just finally woke up. He opened his mouth to respond, but we pulled into the restaurant parking lot. Tom turned off the engine and sat motionless, staring straight ahead. Diane, if you're planning something. Let's go, I interrupted, opening the door. The guests are waiting. The restaurant was decorated with balloons and white roses. Rebecca met us at the entrance with a bouquet, hugged me, whispered in my ear. Everything will be fine. Stay strong. The dining room was already filled with guests. Colleagues from work. Neighbors. Old friends. Everyone smiling, approaching with congratulations, handing me gifts. I smiled back, thanked them, hugged them, but inside there was only emptiness. Tom stayed close, playing the devoted husband, but I felt him vibrating with tension. Several times he tried to pull me aside to talk privately, but each time I found a reason to slip away. The party proceeded. Tables were served. Food arrived. Wine was poured. The MC started the program. Guests gave toasts. I sat at the head table, smiling, responding to congratulations, but my eyes constantly scanned the room. I spotted them. 3 men at a corner table, dressed casually but unremarkably. Their eyes were alert, watchful. One caught my glance and gave an almost imperceptible nod. They were here. They were watching. Tom grew increasingly agitated. He drank wine quickly, barely touched his food, stepped out several times to take calls. When he returned, his face was grim, his jaw tight. "Diane, we need to talk," he said for probably the 5th time, leaning close to my ear. "Not now, Tom," I replied without looking at him. "We have guests. This is important." He grabbed my wrist, squeezed hard enough to hurt. I gasped. Several guests turned to look. Tom immediately released me, forcing another smile. "Sorry. Accident." Sophie looked at us with alarm. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, everything's fine," I said, rubbing my wrist. "Your father's just nervous." The cake was brought out. Everyone sang happy birthday. I blew out the candles, making only one wish, for this to end. Guests applauded and took photos. And in this circle of celebration, only Tom and I knew what was really happening. When everyone settled back into conversation, the music playing softly, people starting to move toward the dance floor, I stood from the table. The MC had just announced a break. I walked toward the small stage area, took the microphone from its stand. The music quieted. "My dear friends," I began, my voice trembling but carrying through the room. "I want to say a few words." Guests quieted, turning toward me. Tom went pale, jumping up from his seat. "Diane, what are you doing?" His voice cracked. "Sit down, Tom," I said coldly. "Sit down and listen." He froze, not knowing what to do. Tense silence blanketed the room. "Today I turned 50, I continued. I thought I'd be celebrating surrounded by people I love and trust. But I learned something that changed everything." I paused, looking directly at Tom. "I learned that the man I trusted with my entire life tried to kill me." Gasps of shock rippled through the hall. Sophie jumped up, covering her mouth. Rebecca held her shoulder, keeping her in place. "Diane, have you lost your mind?" Tom lunged toward me, but the 3 men from the corner were already moving in his direction. "What kind of insanity are you talking about?" "It's not insanity, Tom." I looked at him, and tears finally spilled down my cheeks. "You commissioned a dress for me. A beautiful, expensive dress. And you had poison sewn into it. Contact poison designed to kill me right here at my party, to make it look like a heart attack. So you could collect the insurance money to pay off your debts." "That's a lie," he screamed, his voice breaking. I would never." "I have proof," I interrupted. "The dress is with the police. Forensics confirmed the presence of poison. The detective who's been investigating your fraud knows everything." Detective Foster walked into the room with 2 uniformed officers. Tom saw them and backed away, his face drained of all color. "Thomas Holloway," Detective Foster said calmly, professionally. "You're under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder and financial fraud. Come with us." Tom bolted toward the exit, but officers blocked his path. He struggled, tried to push past, but they quickly subdued him. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "Diane," he yelled, twisting back toward me. "Diane, I'm sorry. I didn't want to. They forced me. I had no choice." I looked at him and felt nothing. No pity. No anger. Only a vast, empty space where love used to be. "You had a choice, Tom," I said quietly. "You could have told me the truth. We could have faced it together. But you chose to murder me instead." They led him away. The room erupted in confused noise. Guests didn't understand what was happening. Sophie was crying, clinging to Greg. Rebecca walked over and pulled me into her arms. "It's over, Diane. It's all over." I stood holding the microphone, watching the door through which my husband had been taken. The husband who'd stopped being my husband the moment he decided my life was worth less than money. Detective Foster approached me. "You'll need to give a formal statement, but that can wait until tomorrow. Get some rest. You're a very brave woman, Mrs. Holloway." I just wanted to live, I replied, my voice exhausted. I just wanted to make it to my birthday. The party was ruined, of course. Guests began leaving, offering words of support, but not knowing what to say. I sat at the empty table. Sophie held my hand. Mom, why didn't you tell me? She asked through tears. I could have helped. What could you have done, sweetheart? I stroked her hair. This wasn't your burden. This was my test. But Dad, how could he? I don't know, Sophie. I honestly don't know. We sat until the waiters began clearing tables. Then we stood and left the restaurant. Outside it was dark and cold. Wind rustled through the trees lining the parking lot. I looked up at the sky, at the stars visible despite the city lights. Thank you, Daddy, I whispered. Thank you for not abandoning me. And for the first time in days, I felt a slight easing of the weight. The worst was over. Now something new was beginning. I didn't know what, exactly. But I knew I was alive. And that was a victory. The night after that devastating evening, I didn't sleep at all. Sophie and her family stayed over, refusing to leave me alone. They slept in the guest room while I lay in my bed. The same bed where a man who wanted me dead had slept beside me just yesterday, staring at the ceiling. The bed felt bigger now, more spacious, but so much colder. In the morning, Detective Foster came by. We sat in the kitchen for a long time. I gave my formal statement, signed documents. The detective explained that Tom had confessed to everything once confronted with the evidence. The debts were staggering. He owed money to people who didn't make idle threats. People who'd promised him a slow, painful end if he didn't pay. The insurance policy on me had seemed like his only way out. He says he loved you, Detective Foster said, pouring himself coffee. That it was the hardest decision of his life. I gave a bitter smile. Love. He has an interesting definition of love. Weakness, the detective corrected gently. He's a weak man, Mrs. Holloway. And that weakness almost cost you your life. After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen, replaying everything in my memory. 20 years of marriage. Sophie's birth, her first steps, her first words. Moving houses. Renovations. Beach vacations. Arguments and reconciliations. Joys and sorrows. Had any of it been real? Sophie came into the kitchen, sat across from me. Mom, we need to head home. Greg has work tomorrow and Jordan has daycare. But I hate leaving you. Go, darling. I covered her hand with mine. I'll be fine. I need time to process everything. Maybe you should come stay with us for a while. No, I need to stay here. Sort through the house. The things. The life. I stumbled over that last word. Sophie left tearfully, making me promise to call every day. I walked them to the car, waved goodbye, watched them drive away. Then I returned to the empty house. The silence was crushing. I walked through rooms, and everywhere there were traces of Tom. His slippers beside the bed, his razor in the bathroom, his favorite coffee mug on the kitchen shelf. Every object a reminder of the life that was gone. The next few days passed in a blur. Police station visits. Meetings with detectives and lawyers. It turned out the house was solely in my name. Tom couldn't have sold it without my consent. At least there was that protection. The trial moved quickly. Tom was sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder and fraud. I attended the sentencing, watched as they led him away in handcuffs. He turned back one last time, met my eyes. I saw remorse there. But it was too late. Far, far too late. A month after the trial, I made a decision. I couldn't live in that house anymore. Every corner held memories of betrayal. Every room whispered lies. I called a real estate agent and put it on the market. The money from the sale was substantial. A buyer appeared within 3 weeks. The deal closed quickly. With that money, I bought a small house outside Asheville in the mountains. A single-story cottage with a little garden and a porch that looked out over rolling hills and forest. A quiet place with no traffic noise, no curious neighbors, no reminders. It was exactly what I needed. I moved only the essentials. Everything else, furniture we'd bought together, dishes from our wedding, framed photographs, I gave away or threw out. I wanted to start completely fresh, with nothing from the old life contaminating the new. I had to quit my accounting job, too. There were too many rumors, too many pitying glances. Instead, I found work at the small Asheville Public Library. It was cozy, smelling of old books and floor polish, with creaking wooden floors. The pay was modest, but enough. I'd never chased wealth anyway. The library became my sanctuary. Every day I arrived at 9 a.m., shelved books, helped patrons with selections, managed records. Simple, straightforward tasks that didn't demand emotional energy. People came and went. Some greeted me warmly. Others took their books silently. I was fine with both. I wasn't ready for closeness yet. Sophie called every single day as promised. She talked about Jordan, Greg's work, her own life. Sometimes she cried, asking how I was managing. I comforted her, said I was fine, that I was okay. But at night, when forest sounds surrounded my cottage, owls hooting, whined through the pines, I lay awake thinking about how easily everything could be lost. 6 months passed. I grew accustomed to my new life. The silence, the solitude. I learned to cook for one, to watch television without feeling guilty about disturbing someone. I started a small vegetable garden behind the cottage, planting tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs. Working with soil was meditative. It quieted my mind. One late spring evening, I sat on my porch with tea, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of pink and gold. Birds sang their evening chorus. And suddenly I realized something. I felt good. For the first time in months, I felt not just peaceful, but genuinely good. As if something frozen inside me had finally thawed. On Saturday, Sophie and her family visited. Jordan ran through the garden chasing butterflies. Greg helped me fix a wobbly section of fence. We sat on the porch eating apple pie I'd baked that morning, talking about simple things. The weather, summer plans, how Jordan had learned to swim. "Mom, you look different," Sophie said, studying my face. "Seriously, you look younger somehow." I smiled. "Maybe it's the mountain air. Or maybe it's freedom," Sophie added softly. "You're free, Mom. And it shows." We hugged, and I felt tears threatening. But they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of gratitude, for being alive, for my daughter being near, for this cottage, this garden, this peace. After they left, I stood at the gate watching their car disappear down the winding road. Then I turned and looked at my cottage. Small, simple, nothing like the house where I'd lived for 20 years. Nothing superfluous here. Nothing false. Just me and my new life. On Sunday, I visited the cemetery. I hadn't been to see my father in too long. I stopped at a flower shop on the way, bought white carnations. He'd always loved those. The grave was well maintained. I'd arranged for someone to look after it. I placed the flowers, sat on a nearby bench, and stayed quiet for a long time. "Thank you, Daddy," I finally said softly. "Thank you for saving me. I know it was you. Even after death, you didn't abandon your daughter." Wind rustled through the cemetery trees, and I felt something like a gentle hand on my shoulder. I smiled through tears. "I'm living, Daddy. I'm moving forward. And you know what? I actually like my life now." I never thought I'd be able to say that, but it's true. I found myself again. I sat there longer, telling him about the cottage, the library job, Sophie and Jordan. As if he were right there listening, nodding, happy for me. When the sun began setting, I stood, adjusted the flowers one last time, and walked to my car. I drove home slowly, savoring the journey, the mountains on both sides, clouds drifting across the sky. The radio played an old song I'd once loved. I sang along quietly, and my heart felt light. A quiet evening awaited me at home. I cooked dinner for myself, sat on the porch with a book, read until darkness fell. Then I went inside, locked the door, and went to bed. And I slept peacefully. No nightmares. No anxiety. I slept like someone who'd walked through hell and survived. Like someone who'd been given a second chance and wasn't going to waste it. In the morning, I woke to birdsong. Got up, brewed coffee, stepped onto the porch. Dew sparkled on the grass. The air smelled fresh and cool. I took a deep breath and smiled. A whole life stretched ahead. A new one. Different. But mine. Without lies. Without fear. Without betrayal. With my daughter and grandson. With work that brought me joy. With a home that had become a true refuge. And somewhere up in heaven, I like to think my father smiled, looking down at his daughter. He'd always said I was strong. He'd been right. I finished my coffee, set the cup on the porch railing, and went inside. Today was an ordinary day. Work at the library, tending the garden, an evening call from Sophie. A simple, peaceful life. Exactly what I deserved. And I was happy. Truly, genuinely happy. Perhaps for the first time in many years. I took a slow breath and looked around my small porch, the place where I finally learned how to breathe again. You know, after everything I went through, after discovering the man I'd shared 20 years with was willing to trade my life for money, you'd think I would have shattered completely. But strangely, I didn't. I bent, yes. I broke a little, but I didn't crumble. And that's what I want you to understand. When life strikes you in ways you never imagined possible, when someone you trusted pulls the ground out from under your feet, you start seeing what truly matters. I learned that surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about choosing yourself even when it hurts. It's about allowing yourself to walk away from the wreckage and start building something small, simple, and honest. My father saved me that night in the dream. But after that, I saved myself. And that's something I never thought I'd be capable of saying. So if you're listening right now and carrying your own heavy story, don't try to erase the pain too quickly. Walk through it, one step at a time. Sometimes the life you rebuild in the silence turns out to be far better than the life you fought so desperately to protect. The revenge I got wasn't violence. It wasn't even seeing Tom led away in handcuffs, though that brought a certain cold satisfaction. The real revenge was this: living, thriving, finding joy again when he'd tried to steal it permanently. Every morning I wake up in my cottage. Every sunset I watch from my porch. Every laugh I share with my grandson. That's my revenge. He wanted me erased. Instead, I became more myself than I'd been in 20 years. That's the twisted justice nobody talks about. The best way to defeat someone who tried to destroy you? Refuse to be destroyed. Build a life so full and genuine that their betrayal becomes nothing more than the dark chapter before everything got better. I won, not because he's in prison, but because I'm free. And that, more than anything else, is a victory he can never take away.